Our scripture reading this morning before Larry's lesson comes from Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16, beginning in verse 24. Matthew 16, beginning in verse 24. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in glory of his Father with the angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works.
Great to see everyone this morning. It's good to have our visitors with us today. There are two things implied by Jesus Christ in the two questions that he asked there in Matthew 16, verse 26. First, those who are striving to gain the world and are unwilling to give up the world for their own souls are going to lose their souls. And secondly, if that soul is lost, there's nothing that can be given in exchange for it. There's no redemption in hell. Now, it doesn't take a wise man to see that many people today, they have great concern for material things, but have very little interest in the spiritual things. I mean, we have our property, we have our own lives insured. We put our bonds and our securities in banks that are protected by the FDIC. And I would probably say that, say your neighbor is about to burn to death in his sleep because of a house fire, that you would be willing to go over there and to save him in whatever way you can. But what if his soul is in danger of hell fire? What are you going to do about that? When we mention the soul of man, what do we mean by the soul? Well, Jesus said in John 4, verse 24, that God is a spirit. And we learn in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, that man is made in the very image of God. And therefore we learn that the spiritual entity of man is that which is his never-dying soul. In our text in Matthew 16, 26, Jesus mentioned losing his own soul. But in the parallel verse, in Luke 9, 25, it says lose himself. So the soul is myself. It is my very being. And it's within man, it is the soul that's within man that loves, he hates, it hopes, it prays, it believes, it aspires, it is tempted, it sins, it repents, and it is the thing of man, the part of man that can be eternally lost or saved. So what is the value of the soul? Well, in our text, we see the value of the soul is worth more than the whole world. Apostle Paul said, it is even worth more than the body. In 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16, he says, For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. The outward man is dying, will eventually perish. It will return to the dust from which it is made. But the inward man, the soul, continues to grow. In chapter 5, verse 1, Paul said, For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. But now, notice how Jesus prioritized the physical body with the spiritual body in his great Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, verses 29 through 30. He says, If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. As much as I depend upon my hands and my eyes, they are not worth more than my soul. We hear a lot of people having to amputate limbs because it is for the purpose of saving their lives. And it's a choice that they had to make. We too also have a choice to make as to what is most important. Is it the body or is it the soul? Now, the value of the soul is also seen in the fact that the soul is immortal. The psalmist said in Psalm 22, verse 26, "The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise the Lord that seek him. Your heart," now that's talking about the spirit or the soul, "shall live forever." And again, as Paul said there in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 1, "For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle, our physical body, were dissolved, if it passes away, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens." Now, we also see the value of the soul in the fact that it cannot be destroyed. Jesus said in Matthew 10:28, "Fear not them which are able to kill the body, but not able to kill the soul. But rather fear him which is able to destroy both body and soul in hell." And we're talking about God. God's the only one who has the power to destroy a man's soul. Satan can't do it. Some other person can't do it. Nothing can do that except God. The soul is so important that it's the part of man that's going to return to God. Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it." This part of man, the soul, is the part of man that God is really interested in. And he will decide, according to the choices that we make while we live here upon this earth, whether it's going to find its eternal destiny in heaven or in hell. Now, even the faculties of the soul prove the value of it. It has the power to think, Proverbs 23:7. It has the power to reason, Mark chapter 2, verse 8. It has the power to love, Matthew 22:37. It has the power to purpose, 2 Corinthians 9, verse 7. It has the power to obey, Romans 6, verses 17 and 18. And it has the power to imagine, Genesis 8, verse 21. Man would be no different from the animal world by acting just upon animal instincts if we did not have a soul. We would be the same as they are. Now, considering the value of the soul, the price that was paid for our soul certainly tells us of the value of it. Speaking to members of the church known as the elect, the Apostle Peter said in 1 Peter 1, verse 18 through 20, "For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold, from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you." So this shows the divine estimate that God in Christ places upon the value of a human soul, our souls. And then, of course, we see the value in it in that it cannot be replaced if it is lost. God has given every person a soul, and only one. And if it is lost, then all is lost. So what value do you place upon your soul? What do you say by your actions what your soul is actually worth? All of us, I think, we would all say that our soul is priceless if we're just talking. But out in life and the things that we do, what value do we really place upon our souls? Do you show by your actions that your soul is worth more than the world? By your actions, do you show that you love the world more, or do you love God more? Now, there are some who act as if their souls are worth very little at all. In fact, they're careless, they're indifferent about the welfare of their souls. They handle their money and their valuables with great caution, with great care, but they seem to give no thought to their soul's well-being. If you are a parent, what is the value of the soul of your child worth? Now, you may say that it's worth years of time and effort and money and education to make sure that they live a good life. And it is true, we want our children to make it a good go in this life. But what if your child does gain the whole world? Is it really worth it? Jesus asked that very question in our text here. Now ask yourself, how much time and money are you willing to spend to save the soul of your child? Make sure that their spiritual well-being is what it should be. Now, when we talk about the world, what are we talking about? I think John gives an apt description and warning of what the world is in 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 and 16. He says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. The world and the love of it falls into three main categories according to the apostle there. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life." Now, the lust of the flesh could be described as worldly pleasure. We all want to be pleased in this life. We like to enjoy life, don't we? But beneath the pleasure seeker, there is usually a heavy heart. In fact, Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 1, he says, "I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure." But what was his conclusion? He says, "And behold, this is also vanity." If anyone had the ability to find worldly pleasure, it would have been King Solomon. And yet, we find here a very unhappy man. The lust of the eyes could be described as worldly wealth. Everybody's always looking for a way to get richer, thinking that's going to be the answer to all of our problems on this life. But wealth is actually a burden of care. There was an elder in the church at Killeen. I think he's dead and gone by now, but he was a very rich man. And he told a preacher friend of mine that the greatest problem he had was to making sure that he handled his money properly before God. And he said, great wealth is not all that it's cracked up to be. Listen to Solomon's conclusion in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10. He says, "He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity." Paul gave a very stern warning to the preacher Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. He says, "For the love of money is a root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." As that elder said, wealth is not all that it's cracked up to be. Wealth may look good on the inside, but it can control on a man on the inside to the point that he would even lose his soul because his priorities are not in the right order. The pride of life could be described as worldly honor and power. Such honor and power, they never bring satisfaction because there's always somebody who's going to be above you. Somebody else is going to be your boss, no matter who you are, what position you have. And then once you do get to a certain point of power, guess what? There's always going to be somebody trying to come along to knock you out of that position and take your place. And just like pleasure and wealth, power can never bring contentment for which we yearn. Alexander the Great conquered most of the known world by the time that he was of the age of 21. And yet, he died as a very unsatisfied young man. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like I have been told that he committed suicide because what he gained wasn't worth it all. Solomon searched for happiness throughout his life, and after he tried all the devices of the world, he came to this sensible conclusion in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 13 and 14. He says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." So what would be our profit if we gained the whole world? Or you might say it this way, if a man should gain the whole world, what would be his gain? Well, one thing he would gain is something that cannot satisfy. Jesus told the devil that man cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, Matthew chapter 4, verse 4. Jesus told the woman at the well in John chapter 4, verse 13 and 14, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. And again in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10, Solomon made it plain that worldly treasures cannot satisfy a man. He eats, he drinks, he gains, and then he will want the more. If we gain the world, we also gain a very dangerous master. Paul warned Timothy there in 1 Timothy 6, verses 9 and 10. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. It is far better to make a choice like Moses did in Hebrews 11, verse 25, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Now, when we also gain the world, we gain something that is perishable. Peter said in 1 Peter 1, verse 24, for all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man is the flower of grass. The grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away. John said in 1 John 2:17, the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. So why would you throw away something like the glories of heaven that is eternal for something that is temporal and less glorious? Now here's something else. When we gain the world, we gain something that we're going to have to leave behind. To the rich, foolish farmer who thought that he had it made, he finally got to that point that he wanted to be at, God said, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall these things be which thou hast provided? We cannot carry our physical baggage into the next life. I have never in reality seen a U-Haul trailer hooked up to a hearse. Now, I've seen pictures of it on the internet just for a laugh, but in reality, that doesn't happen. People know you cannot take your stuff in the next life. Now, I know the pharaohs tried to do it. They had all these treasures and everything in their tombs buried with them, but guess what? It was left behind, and thieves came along, and they took it away. Paul said in 1 Timothy 6, verse 7 through 8, for we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us therewith be content. So what would be our loss if we gained the whole world? Well, our loss would be the world itself. That which you have gained at so great a cost will be lost, because the lost soul cannot take this world into the next world. So men who lose their soul in gaining money not only lose their soul, they're going to lose the money too. He who gains social and political honors at the expense of his soul will lose them also, because they're going to be worthless to him in hell. So a soul lost for the gain of the world doesn't mean that the world is going to be gained, because he cannot take that from this world into the next world. And also, if you gain the world, you're going to lose a lifetime of service. A life of many years which could have been devoted to God's glory and his service. They're all going to be lost. Listen to the fate of the one-talent man who thought to serve himself rather than his master in Matthew chapter 25, verses 28 and 29. He says, take therefore, this is the master saying, take therefore the talent from him and give it to him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Service to any other master than God is only lost service. So consider this. The lost soul can never be recovered. It will be lost eternally. If you lose your soul in the pursuit of pleasure, riches, or honor, you will never have an opportunity in eternity to be able to redeem the loss. The rich man in torment in Luke chapter 16, he never could cross that great gulf to go into paradise. He couldn't even return back to the earth to warn his brothers. He was permanently and forever lost. The rich man learned his lesson too late. He learned in death a lesson that should have been learned in life. So a lost soul is the greatest wreck and tragedy possible. But a soul that is saved is the greatest accomplishment and success that is possible. So what will be your choice? Will it be the choice that Joshua made? But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I encourage you to consider the choice that is before you now. Eternal salvation, obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ so you can have a home in heaven? Or is it going to be everlasting destruction, the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is going to be the punishment for those who disobey Christ? What choice will you make? And you need to take heed what choice you're going to make between these two alternatives, because your eternity trembles in the balances. Today is a day of salvation. Is it for you? If you have a need, if you're not a child of God, you need to become one. You need to make the right choice. Don't sell your soul out to the world, because it's not worth it, because you will lose it in the end. If you're a child of God, things are not what they ought to be in your spiritual life, make the correction. Maybe you need the prayers of the congregation, whatever it may be. Let your needs be known while together we stand and sing.